You ever wake up to the kind of morning where the air is so thick with fog, you feel like you could slice it with a shovel? Yeah, that was me. Early spring, coffee in hand, standing on the porch and watching my daughter Ellie steer our beat-up old Kubota tractor down the eastern field. Most kids her age, they want a new phone or a shiny car for their 16th. Not my Ellie. She wanted to plow. She wanted to work the land, understand it, make something grow, just like her mama used to. I was halfway through my first cup, just letting myself feel proud, when I heard it. The sharp, angry click of high heels on gravel. You know the sound. Like a woodpecker with an attitude. And just like that, the peace was gone. Karen HOA, president of our HOA, self-appointed dictator of this little patch of earth, was marching up my driveway like she was General Patton. She had a leather folder in one hand, some neon thermos in the other, and her security officer, Gary, trailing behind her. Picture a retired dog groomer who thinks a plastic badge makes him Wyatt Earp. That's Gary. Karen didn't even glance my way. Her eyes were locked on Ellie in the tractor. What is she doing? She barked, voice sharp enough to skin a peach. I didn't move, didn't blink. She's plowing, Karen. This is a farm. We plow. She spun around like I'd spit in her cereal. This land is under HOA jurisdiction. Agricultural activity violates subsection. No, it doesn't. I cut in, already feeling my pulse in my temples. This land was here before your HOA. It's not even inside your boundaries. She raised her voice, like volume was going to make her right. That's been disputed. And we've had multiple complaints. Noise, mud, visual disruption. I couldn't help it. I laughed. From who, the cows? Her face went red as a stop sign. She yanked a form from her folder, held it out like she was issuing a warrant. This is your first warning. Your daughter is operating machinery without a permit. She's damaging HOA-maintained greenbelt. You'll be fined. Ellie turned off the tractor and came striding up, jeans muddy, chin high, spitting image of her mother. Is there a problem, Dad? She asked. Karen whirled on her. You're trespassing. We don't allow unlicensed minors to operate farm vehicles on HOA property. Ellie just stared, calm as a lake in winter. This isn't HOA property. Karen took a step closer. Are you going to let your daughter speak to me like that? I smiled just a little. I taught her to speak truth to power. You might want to take notes. Gary shuffled awkwardly. Maybe we should just let this go, Karen. That field's always been there. But Karen wasn't listening. You've got 72 hours to cease all activity and remove the machinery, or we escalate. She slapped the warning form in my hand and stalked back to her SUV. Gary shrugged, like he wanted to apologize but didn't have the spine. Ellie looked at me. Are they serious? I folded the form and stuffed it in my pocket. They picked the wrong field for a fight. And that's the thing. This wasn't just some piece of dirt. This was Wellerland. My great-grandfather bought it in 1911, paid for with calluses and hope. I'm not just some widower growing old on a family plot. 30 years in the army, 2 wars, 3 continents. I know how to hold a line. Karen had no idea who she was messing with. Next 24 hours? 3 more notices. 1 taped to the gate, another in the mailbox, which, by the way, is a federal offense to tamper with, and 1 shoved through the barn door with red ink screaming, "Final enforcement warning." Ellie's hands balled into fists every time. I told her not to worry. But inside, I was already preparing for battle. You know how it goes with HOAs. First, it's flyers about voluntary community fees. Then they want your fence painted acceptable colors. Then they try to change the zoning on your land. They expand 1 fence post at a time, hoping you won't notice. Well, I noticed. That night, Ellie and I sat on the porch, sun going down. Tractor cooling off, ground freshly turned. I'm not scared of them, she said. I smiled good. Because we're not backing down. Sleep didn't come easy. I spent half the night at the kitchen table, surrounded by old maps, tax documents, the original 1911 deed, and an updated 2008 plat map showing, plain as day, our land outside the HOA. Highlighters, sticky notes, cross-references. I was making my stand. 2 days later, a surveyor shows up. Yellow vest, clean khakis, clipboard like a weapon, HOA property assessment team. Ellie spotted him from the barn. Dad, some guys here with measuring poles. I walked out, dust shimmering in the sun. Can I help you? Mr. Weller? I'm conducting a boundary verification survey for the Lakeside Ridge HOA. I just shook my head. That's a lot of words for trespassing. He tried to look official. I have permission to. Not unless you're with the county or sheriff's office and have a warrant. Otherwise, you're not setting foot past that gate. He blinked. Karen probably told him we were hicks. The look I gave him said otherwise. I pulled out my laminated map. Paranoia, maybe. But necessary. This, I pointed, is our land. Parcel 19B. Bought, taxed, surveyed. That fence line over there? That's the real boundary. He scribbled something and left without another word. By nightfall, another notice. This one had Karen's signature and a laughably bad map. Red lines scrawled over a Google Earth printout, expanding the HOA onto our land. A sticky note. Non-compliant land usage. Subject to enforcement. Ellie looked over my shoulder. She can't do that, right? I shrugged. She can try. If she yells loud enough, files enough complaints. She can drag us into hearings and waste months of our lives proving what's already true. I called Clay Dobson, old Army buddy, now a lawyer. You ever seen an HOA try to annex a farm with Microsoft Paint? He laughed. You in trouble? Not yet. But check the HOA charter filings. See if there's anything about boundary expansions or abuse of process. That night, at dinner, Ellie was quiet. Dad, what if they make us sell? They won't, I said. But what if they take us to court? We didn't break anything. They can't take what they don't own. She nodded, but I could see it in her eyes. Fear that people with enough money and rules can ruin your life, even when you're right. Next morning, Karen showed up again, this time with 2 other board members. Tall, smug guy in a pink polo, woman in a visor who looked like she'd scold a puppy for wagging its tail. We'd like to speak, Karen said. Talk, I replied from the truck. We're offering you an opportunity to come into voluntary compliance, Pink Polo said. What you call compliance is submission, I shot back. You don't own this land. You don't regulate it. You don't get a say. Visor lady frowned. The community finds your tone hostile. I find your presence unlawful. Karen stepped forward. If you escalate, we'll go to mediation. I leaned on the fence. You know who planted these posts? My great-grandfather, by hand. Took him 2 summers. You think I'll let a handful of volunteers with printouts from Zillow tell me where my land begins and ends? File your papers. I'll fight you every step. They left, but not before Pink Polo took photos of my barn. Ellie just stood behind me. They think we'll fold. I smiled. They don't know us yet. The next HOA board meeting? Picture a room packed with retirees, sipping bad coffee and whispering about mailbox colors. Karen sat at the front, flanked by her deputies, Mark, the guy in pink, and Linda, visor lady. Enforcer of aesthetic continuity. They call my name. I stood, binder in hand. Deeds, maps, tax records, a letter from the county registrar. I'm here to dispute your citations, I said. Your documents are inaccurate. Your enforcement is illegal. Withdraw the warnings, or I'll sue. Karen didn't even blink. Mr. Weller, boundaries can be confusing. They're not, I cut in. They've been the same since 2008. Your map is fantasy. Mark flicked on a projector, amateur satellite image, my field colored in. This map reflects the expansion vote last August. I wasn't part of that vote, I said. It passed with majority quorum. For your HOA members. I'm not one. You can't vote to govern land you don't own. Murmurs in the crowd. Karen tapped her mic. Perhaps the solution is compromise, a retroactive inclusion package. Reduced dues, landscaping, access to our newsletter. I laughed. You think I'm here for the newsletter? I'm here because you threatened my daughter on land she was born on. I'm not negotiating. I want a withdrawal, an apology, and a corrected map. Linda finally snapped. This isn't a courtroom, Mr. Weller. Not yet, I replied. Chuckles from the back row. They dismissed me. No vote, no debate, just a condescending thank you. I walked out, but I'd seen what I needed. This wasn't about logic. It was about power, performance. They wanted to make an example out of me. They had no idea what kind of example I could make out of them. Back home, Ellie was waiting. How'd it go, she asked. They laughed. Her face fell. So what now? I looked at the field, fence line glowing in the porch light. Now, I said, we stop asking nicely. I spent the next 3 hours pulling every county, zoning ordinance, every HOA charter, every archived board minute I could find. And that's when I found it. A note from their last August vote. Boundary adjustment includes parcels 19B, 19D under. Preliminary oversight. Legal confirmation pending. They knew they didn't own my land. They just hoped I didn't know. That changed everything. Next morning, before dawn, I called Clay again. We're going on offense. Want to help me write the cease and desist? He sounded almost excited. Thought you'd never ask. I showed up at the HOA office with my land survey tube and a folder of notarized documents. Karen, Mark, an intern named Spencer, and, just to spice things up, a uniformed deputy. Karen didn't look up. Please have a seat. No thanks. That's the deed. That's the certified map. My property isn't in your jurisdiction. Mark leafed through, shrugged. These are outdated. Wrong. That map was reaffirmed last year. County registrar says no application to extend your boundary has ever been submitted. Your little vote? Legally meaningless. Karen slapped her fake map on the table. Our updated assessment reflects. That's not an assessment, Karen. That's a coloring project. She threatened legal enforcement. I turned to the deputy. Do you see any fraud here? He hesitated, shook his head. If this continues, Karen said, we'll put a lien on your property. Try it, I said, cold. I'll sue for harassment, defamation, and civil trespass. Here's my cease and desist. Mark turned pale. Karen was silent. I told them I'd reported there. Map edit to the county. Sounds like fraudulent land annexation, they'd said. You know what happens when you do that? Investigation. I left, the deputy watching me go. For the first time, I felt like I was ahead. That night, I emailed the cease and desist to every board member, CC'd the county clerk, zoning office, and a local news columnist. If they wanted war, I'd give it to them. I wasn't just protecting dirt. I was protecting legacy. The next week was a whirlwind. Neighbors reaching out, old maps surfacing, pictures of the original boundary signs proving the HOA had never reached this far east. I found a copy of their budget, $7,800 for boundary consultation and surveyor fees. That surveyor at my gate paid with HOA money. I got receipts. Karen, meanwhile, was still posting on Facebook, please disregard misinformation from non-compliant landholders. That's defamation, Karen. And I had proof. That night, I organized everything, legal proof, financial misuse, public misinformation, into community packets. Ellie and I handed them out, door to door. People's faces went from confusion to concern to outrage. By sundown, my phone was blowing up. Neighbors I'd never met were thanking me, demanding emergency board meetings. Karen wanted silence, but I'd just woken up the whole neighborhood. Within days, someone uploaded my packet to the HOA Facebook group, and the wildfire spread. People asking how much they'd paid for bogus maps, regret over voting for this board, even calls for Karen's resignation. Then came the emergency meeting. A neighbor streamed it live. The room was packed, people waving documents, shouting questions. Karen unraveled, blaming everyone but herself. A woman stood up and called for a vote of no confidence. The crowd cheered. The clip went viral. Karen's meltdown, the Farmgate fiasco, the day the clipboard queen crumbled. For board members quit, Mark included. Carla, level-headed, fair, was voted interim president. I didn't go to the meeting. I'd fought my fight. Now it was theirs to finish. The local news picked it up. Ellie saw herself on TV, laughed for the first time in months. That night, the neighbors brought pie. Real, honest-to-God pie. We sat on the porch, shared a meal, and for the first time, talked like neighbors instead of adversaries. A week later, the verdict came down. Court ruled in my favor. The HOA was ordered to cease all actions against my property, issue a public apology, and undergo an independent audit. Karen disappeared. House sold. No goodbye. 3 months on, the world feels different. Carla read the apology at the next meeting, and then stepped down, said she just wanted to fix what was broken. People wave when they pass now. Benji started a coffee circle. Marie organized a harvest fair. Ellie taught the middle schoolers how to plow straight. She's changed, stronger, more rooted. One night, she looked up at the stars and said, I used to think you were just stubborn. Still am, I smirked. But now I get it. You weren't fighting for you. No, honey. I was fighting for everyone who ever got pushed around. For you, so you'd know this land is yours. That fall, we planted winter rye, thick and green, stubborn as we are. Every morning, I walk the field, smell the earth, and remember, this place wasn't just saved. It was defended with truth, grit, and the kind of resolve you can't buy or bulldoze. And now, I've got a question for you. Anyone out there ever stand your ground when the world tried to push you off it? Ever had to draw a line, not out of anger, but because it was right? I want to hear your stories. Drop them in the comments. Because out here, justice isn't just what happens in a courtroom. It's what happens when you refuse to be silent. Let's talk about it.